I wanted to be a vet since I honestly can't remember. When I used to tell people that, they'd be like, oh, you know, it's 7 years at university, or like, it's so hard, you need to get good grades, whatever. But so what? Like, you can do it. Even if it is your childhood dream, that doesn't make it any less of like a realistic goal to achieve, that if you work towards it, you can get it.
Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I have with me Alice Cuffley, who's a student from Bristol University, and today she'll be sharing her experience of vet school, how she applied and everything. So fingers crossed our internet doesn't cut off, but we'll see how it goes. Take it away.
Sure, yeah, I'm Alice and I'm a final year vet student at Bristol.
Cool. So how are you finding final year at the moment? What's happening with all the COVID situation?
Yeah, no, it's definitely all a bit different. We're sort of doing about 50% in clinics, sort of as usual, and then 50% online. But I think that kind of means you can almost maximise your time in clinics. Whereas I think the older years have had sort of a bit more time hanging around and stuff between cases. So I don't really think there's pros and cons to it, yeah. But it's been really enjoyable.
Cool. What do you mean by clinics? Are you at the vet school or do you have like partnering practices that you go to?
Yeah, so at the vet school on Langford, like at their site, they have a small animal hospital and sort of a first opinion practice as well. So yeah, sort of a lot of time spent there.
Ah, right. Okay, nice. And do you find that, because I find recently with the new lockdown, we have less cases because they're only accepting like emergencies or urgent cases. Do you find that the same with you?
Yeah, no, I would say that there has been sort of slightly fewer cases, but I feel like at the moment it's sort of so variable, sort of different stages of lockdown and things, so just kind of had to roll with the punches a bit. And yeah, kind of, I suppose if there are fewer cases, you can kind of get deeper into them and really research them a bit more thoroughly. So yeah,
fair enough. Do the best we can at the moment, I guess. Yeah,
exactly.
Could you tell us, why did you apply to Bristol Vet School and how did you apply?
Sure, absolutely. I think when applying, I was just kind of looking at all of them to begin with. I think for me, like location was quite important, and I think Bristol's a really great place. I think the city's really cool, and just sort of going around and on open days and things, I just got kind of a really good feeling, a really good vibe. I think it was most based off gut feeling, sort of based on open days and things, to be honest. In terms of actually like applying, so yeah, I applied to 4 different vet schools. I applied to Bristol, Cambridge, Nottingham and Surrey, and then ended up getting interviews at Cambridge and Bristol, and then ended up here.
So what type of subjects do you have to do to apply to Bristol? What's the entry requirements?
Sure. So I only really have an experience of A-levels because that's what I did personally. But so the A-level requirements are 3 A's, and that's got to sort of include chemistry and then 1 of biology, physics or maths. But then there's sort of all different requirements for sort of IB, BTEC, hires and all of that. So I kind of recommend looking on the website if you're doing something slightly different.
And what type of work experience did you have to do?
I think it's probably changed a bit since I did it personally, but sort of looking on the website recently, they're asking for a week in veterinary practice and then a week in sort of any other animal related setting really, and then sort of within 3 years of applying. But obviously sort of with coronavirus everything's a bit different. So they have actually developed an online sort of virtual work experience course.
Oh really?
Just if you haven't been able to sort of complete as much work experience as you'd like, you can kind of do that sort of I think it's on Future Learn or some kind of MOOC website. So yeah.
Well, I'll definitely link it. That's a really good alternative, I bet, because I don't really know what's going to happen with the lockdown, and I don't know how long we're going to be in this sort of situation. So did you have to do extra tests besides the application, and did you have to do an interview?
So in terms of interview, I had to do an interview, but sort of I think a few years ago they actually stopped interviewing.
Oh really?
Yeah. So I think at the moment it's just sort of based on the entry requirements and the grades, and then as long as you've got the work experience, and then they have sort of a supplementary assessment questionnaire, which has sort of different sections on work experience and what you've kind of got from that, and also sort of general reflection and things like that. So that's kind of something extra that you have to do. But yeah, no interview.
Oh, cool. Could you tell me more about the supplement assessment questionnaire and like any tips on general tips on applying for Bristol? Tips and advice? The
supplementary assessment questionnaire isn't something I had to do, so I don't really have too much experience of it. But yeah, just looking up on it, it seems that there's a section on work experience and then one on attributes, experiences, understanding and reflection. So I think it's the kind of thing you just kind of take some time and really think about what you've got from your work experience and sort of how that will be kind of useful going forward and what you've learnt from it, and just take some time filling it in really, and hopefully that should be good.
Pretty straightforward. Yeah. Anything else that we should know about the application process?
I'm not too sure really. I think just because it has changed so much since I did it, I don't know if I have sort of any particular nuggets of wisdom for it this way around. But I think just as much as possible kind of sell yourself, but also like be true to who you are and make sure that kind of even through your personal statement, things like it sounds like you and it's your voice. And I think that's really important, because then in any interviews or kind of questionnaires or anything, you'll come across as sort of genuine, and I think that's really important.
Okay, yeah, that's very useful. Thank you. So now for the second section, we will talk about your student experience at Bristol. So firstly, let's talk about the course and curriculum. So what is a typical first year like? How did you find the teaching in Bristol, and do you enjoy it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've really enjoyed it. I've loved the course sort of the whole way through. But yeah, in first year, like the whole course is sort of systems based. So you kind of go through each system, sort of like cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, and then sort of do all the species differences sort of with that at once. And then you're also looking at kind of anatomy, physiology, kind of all like in terms of the system, which I think is quite a good way of doing things. But yeah, and then in first year, you're sort of mostly based in Bristol and sort of 4 days a week. And then you'll come into Langford once a week, and that's mostly lectures, but you'll also have some sort of animal handling practicals out here. But then, yeah, when you're in Bristol, you also have some like dissections and lab sessions and things. And then, yeah, for first year, there's sort of a short little module at the start, which is kind of just, I think, getting everyone up to speed really, and making sure everyone's sort of kind of got the same understanding. And then there's like an exam on that in about November time. And then you kind of carry on with the year, and then exams at the end of the year. I think some people always wonder about first year and like whether it counts or not. But yeah, at Bristol it does count, but it's only 10% of the course. So it's not too much to worry about. But it's also kind of nice to get a bit done in first year, and then you have something to kind of, you've already got a bit under your belt.
Would you say that first year counts 10%? 10% of what?
Just in terms of sort of whole degree grade, it just sort of 10% in the first year, 20% in second, third and fourth year, and then 30% in final year. And that's kind of how they split it out, the weighting.
Okay. And is your second year also like a preclinical year?
Yeah, second year is also preclinical.
Could you tell us more about second year?
Second year, sort of the main things for me were kind of a lot of musculoskeletal stuff and a lot of sort of parasitology and things, but then also some sort of group projects within that, which are always sort of fun and kind of nice to work on teamwork and things. And yeah, sort of again, mainly lectures, but sort of a few practicals and lab sessions and things. So kind of, yeah, definitely similar to first year in a lot of respects, in kind of terms of structure and how the teaching is delivered.
And what about the rest of the years? If you could like take us through a whiz tour of what happened in all the years and any exams.
So yeah, for the rest of the years, it's sort of from third year, you start kind of discussing disease, because up until then you kind of just been discussing healthy animals and how that will work. But yeah, in third year you kind of get your first taste of disease and how that will work. And yeah, in terms of exams, first and second year you kind of have just end of year exams. I think in second year you also have January exams. It's been a little while. And yeah, third year again, I think the January and the end of year exams. But in fourth year you don't have January exams, but you kind of have March exams, because then final year starts sort of after Easter, and it's kind of like the whole year round.
Okay. And do you get continually assessed in your final year then?
Yeah, so a lot of the assessment in final year is sort of practical and in your rotations, but there's also sort of, you have to kind of do a project in your elective, and that I think counts 15% of final year as well.
Okay, but you don't have like a major exam at the end of final year?
We do have finals, yeah, but that's sort of, not actually sure how much that counts. I have to double check. But yeah, I think sort of most of the assessment is kind of during the year.
Oh, that's really interesting, because we have it different in, like, for example, in Cambridge you only have one exam a year in first to third year instead of like we don't have January exams. So
right,
how is EMS organized in Bristol, and do you have to organize it yourself?
Sure, yeah. So for your first EMS placement is like a lambing placement in first year at Easter, and that's something that the vet school organises. I think if you've kind of got contacts, you can do it yourself if you want, but for most people they just kind of sit back and let the vet school take over. So yes, that's really nice. But sort of after that you're kind of responsible for organising your own placements. But the vet school does have like a great database of different like farms and practices and everything, and sort of a team and like an email address and everything that you can contact if you are struggling to find them, and they're kind of quite good at hooking you up if you need to.
Okay, that's good. Do you find that there are a lot of farm placements around Bristol area, or do you have to travel further for these kind of placements?
Well, for me, I kind of tend to do mine sort of around home, sort of near London.
Okay.
There are fewer farm places near there. But yeah, so I've sort of had to travel for some of mine, but I think if you are looking more like closer to Bristol. There are definitely some farm practices around here, so that's good.
So I guess in general, how is it like living in Bristol, and what is the student life like?
I love living in Bristol. It's a bit different now because sort of in fourth year you move out, or generally fourth year, you move out to the countryside, to Langford, to be closer to the vet school. But yeah, living in Bristol itself, it's really fun. It's a great student city. Yeah, I lived in Stoke Bishop, so kind of a bit further away in first year in halls, but then second year kind of moved closer to the city centre, and then I love both, to be honest. I think it's a really fantastic city to be a student in, and there's loads of options for sort of nightlife, but also kind of other things. There's a cat pub, there's like everything going on. So yeah, I think it's really great living there.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned you lived in different places from first and second year you live in the city, is that right?
First year I was in Stoke Bishop, which is one of the kind of spots for halls. And then second year I moved right into the city centre. And then in third year I was sort of on the Triangle. So that's kind of a bit closer to uni and also kind of right in the middle of the nightlife. Mm-hmm. So it's sometimes a bit noisy, but no, great place to live.
So what do you mean by the Triangle? Is that
It's just sort of a part of Bristol that's kind of vaguely triangular shaped.
Oh, right.
And yeah, it's got loads of shops and clubs and everything, really.
Oh, okay. So, but in terms of the campus location, you said you moved campuses. You moved to the Langford campus in fourth year, was it?
Yeah. So you visit it sort of for a day or 2 days in first to third year, and then most people will move out in fourth year just because you're based there pretty much all the time. And then you can kind of live in Langford in the village itself, or sort of surrounding villages. It's all quite nice and rural.
Ah. Right. So how do you get around from throughout all the years? Do you have to get public transport, or do you walk, or do you have to drive?
So the vet school provides transport from Bristol to Langford, because it's about a half-hour drive or so. So yeah, they provide a bus for that, and there's now a regular bus service going. But I think when you're actually living in Langford, it can be a little bit tricky without a car. I mean, you can definitely get by, particularly if you sort of live really close to the vet school and you can just walk in and maybe rely on housemates for lift to the shops and things. But yeah, I think you don't really need to worry about it until you're living out in the stick, because yeah, in first to third year you definitely don't need a car. They cover that with the bus system.
Oh, okay. So where you stayed, how far away is the bus to the campus?
So there's the bus has loads of different stops, really. So you're pretty much always fairly close. With Stoke Bishop, which is one of the kind of main places where halls are, and that's got its own transport hub. So I think you probably have to get the bus from Stoke Bishop into Bristol and then get the special kind of vet one out.
Is Stoke Bishop where most people live in first year?
There's sort of three main areas. There's Stoke Bishop, which is a little bit further away, but it's kind of got a really nice community, probably because it is a bit further away. Then there's sort of the city centre halls, and then the kind of Clifton halls, which are a bit closer to campus. But yeah, they all have pros and cons, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I personally really enjoyed living in Stoke Bishop.
Why was there a reason why you chose? Do you get to choose, or do you get placed in these places?
I think you maybe pick your top three or something. I thought it was nice, kind of maybe a bit further away, and because I wasn't really used to living in a city, so I guess kind of slowly adjusting myself to living in the city. Right. So living somewhere a little bit more green, and yeah, I just really like the idea of kind of a nice close-knit community between within your hall, but also kind of between the other halls that are out in Stoke Bishop as well.
And what was the costs of the rent roughly?
That's a good question. It's really variable, I think, in halls. Fortunately, I actually shared a room in first year, and so I had half the rent. So yeah, I think it's really variable. I can't actually remember what mine ended up being in first year. For second year, or sort of actually other kind of private accommodation in Bristol, sort of 400 to 500 a month. Ish, really depending on sort of location and things. But you do find 400 is a bit on the lower side. But you do find that it does get cheaper moving out to Langford. So you can kind of get most places are around 350 here per month. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's really good. And do you get support from the vet school to apply for accommodation when you move out after the first year, or is it pretty much on your own?
When you're still living in Bristol, sort of second and third year, it's not really been too much of an issue. I think most people find it okay. The SU can help with friendly accommodation in Bristol, but once you move out, then it can be a bit more tricky to find it when you're out in Langford. So the Vet Society kind of sends out lists of people previously have lived, and then if anyone's got any spare rooms, and so they kind of really do try to match you up and make sure everyone's nice and close.
Yeah. In Cambridge, we also have an area where all the vets just pretty much live close by, so it's quite nice. When in the past you could do house crawls and pub crawls, but now you can't. The good old days. But yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of societies and clubs can you get involved in Bristol? And were there any vet specific ones? What is it like?
There's such a variety, to be honest. There's pretty much everything. Like in first year, I joined Panto Soc, which I never really saw
What is
myself
that?
doing. It's just a society that's kind of dedicated to pantomimes. So in first year, I was in the Little Mermaid pantomime.
Oh, amazing.
That was great fun. But yeah, I've also done sort of dance, and there's baking society and board game society, and sort of pretty much everything you can think of. I think there's wine. No, there's definitely wine society. I had a friend in that. There's definitely a wine society.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, pretty much everything. And then in terms of sort of vet specific ones, the Vet Society itself, it's called Centaur, so Centaur Society. That sort of runs, like, that has its own vet panto, which we do sort of annually. But there's also sort of like an arts part of that, and it organises loads of other events. So even if you were just wanting to stick to vet stuff, there'd be plenty of variety of things to do, but sort of there's loads in the wider student body as well.
I've come to accept the fact that my cable just dips in and out whenever it pleases. Okay.
Oh no.
Can you hear now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right, I was about to ask you. So with all of these clubs and societies, do you find that the timetable at Bristol, how's the work-life balance like?
I think it can be easy to kind of get a bit sort of swamped with what you're doing in the work and stuff. But I think as long as you kind of take it a bit easy, and there's definitely enough hours in the day to kind of focus on your vet stuff and do well, and also kind of do other things and kind of be creative and have other hobbies. So I definitely don't think it's kind of an either or situation. I think also the vet school really cares. Like, they do want you to have other interests and things. So I think it's definitely possible to have a good work-life balance, I'd say.
Yeah, especially when the vet degree is too intense, you kind of need that balance. Otherwise,
yeah, definitely,
you might suffer burnout or something like that.
Yeah, and it can be a nice distraction as well.
Yeah. So you mentioned your Bristol Veterinary Society. Do they organize balls and things like that, or what kind of events do they do?
Yeah, so there's sort of 3 main events in the Vet Soc calendar. There's in sort of November-ish time, there's a soiree, which is kind of like drinks and dancing and things, but not a sit-down meal. And then in January, there's Vet Ball, which is sort of a bit bigger, a bit more extravagant, and has a sit-down meal, and then sort of dancing into the night and things.
Wow.
And then probably my personal favourite is barn dance.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's on a farm, and you kind of have a hog roast, like a barn dance, and there's sort of animals around.
Really? Wow.
Oh, it's just great fun.
Oh, I'm so jealous. We don't have that, Cambridge. I'm so sad. That sounds so much fun.
But then we have sort of like a vet family system. There'll be parents to vets in the year below, and like the Vet Soc also organises sort of family events and bar crawls and treasure hunts and all sorts of things to kind of help with the bonding between the years.
Yeah, that's really good. I did find that, like, we also have this sort of system, the vet system and a college family system, and I found that really helped, because when you're in first year, you just feel so overwhelmed by all the different things you have to do and all the social events, and you're just like, where do I go? But yeah.
No, exactly. It's nice to have someone to kind of ask all your questions to. Has just been through it. Yeah.
So what is your cohort size, and how many international students do you have, if you know?
I'm not too sure of numbers, to be fair, but our cohort size there's about 130 of us now, so it's quite a nice size. It means you kind of know everybody, but there's sort of plenty of room for just kind of getting to meet different people in sort of different DSE groups. That's kind of the groups you'll work in sort of in the year sort of 1 to 3. Actually 1 to 4, and then sort of in your rotation groups you kind of get an opportunity to work with most people, so it's quite nice.
Whether the journey from Clifton to Langford is a big con.
I mean, it's definitely better now that they've got the bus service.
Oh, you mean they previously didn't have like a bus service?
They used to do coaches, but it kind of meant that if you sort of you finished early or for whatever reason kind of had to get back for something, it was more challenging to get back to Bristol. But now they've kind of got a bus service that runs at least hourly, so it's just a lot more flexible.
Okay, so it's better now. is the answer.
Definitely better now.
So where's the best place to live in first year? City centre or on the outskirts?
I think it's a tricky one to answer because I think it's really personal. It's like I loved living in Stoke Bishop, even though it was a bit further away. I guess that's part of the reason why I enjoyed it so much. But I think, yeah, if you're looking to be really like close to the action, maybe city centres for you, and then Clifton's really pretty. It's a really nice place to live as well. So yeah, it's tricky to say. And I'd say go and visit it, but obviously it's tricky at the moment. So maybe just look at pictures.
Google pictures.
Just try and get a feel.
Right, so the last part is about your career aspirations. Any interests you want to highlight and talk about?
In terms of sort of career aspirations, kind of getting into the looking for job stage, which is
oh my god,
exciting.
same. So scary.
Yeah, exciting is one word. But yeah, no, sort of thinking about probably looking for sort of more job and looking at sort of grad schemes and things at the moment. But yeah, then I'm kind of thinking of moving sort of back home. I like the area, and so I know the practices around there as well. So that's currently the plan, but you never know. But it was tricky because I really loved cows. And so in the back of my head, it was always kind of like, do I do farm? Do I do mixed? But I think I'm pretty much set on smallies for now.
Oh my goodness, really? Dude, I was gonna say the same thing. I'm really into small animals and cows. How did you decide?
It was a long process, to be honest. I think ultimately, like, I really enjoy being in small animal practice and kind of the variety. And I think that's also what I've kind of been mostly exposed to, kind of being a bit further away from farm practices and things. I absolutely love farm practice, and it's definitely something that interests me. But I think I can just see myself being a small animal vet. I think that's kind of, again, with the gut feeling thing. I think, yeah, and it's just, I find it really varied, and I love talking to clients and kind of having that relationship with clients. So yeah, lots of things like contributing to it, but yeah, and I'm really excited about hopefully getting a smallies job and sort of seeing how all of that goes.
Cool. Yeah, definitely all the best in your applications.
Wow, thank you.
Our last question is, if you could turn back time, what would you tell your younger self when applying to vet school?
I think just sort of, if you want it enough, like that on its own maybe isn't enough, but kind of tying in like the working hard and the getting the grades and kind of going out and doing the work experience, like you've kind of, if you want it, you can get it. And I feel like a lot of them I wanted to be a vet since I honestly can't remember. When I used to tell people that, they'd be like, oh, it's 7 years at university, or like, it's so hard, you need to get good grades, whatever. And but so what? Like, you can do it. And like, even if it is your childhood dream, that doesn't make it any less of like a realistic goal to achieve, that if you work towards it, you can get it. So yeah, I guess just kind of, it's a bit cliche, but just kind of believing yourself.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, thank you so much, Alice, for spending the time to talk to me. I'm going to say thank you, Alice, for spending time with us. And